First of all, Mike Parry, do you think that 20's plenty, as they say?
No, I think it's mad. I do quite a lot of work in the building you're sitting in there, Mark, OK? So the last time I was working with Eamon Holmes, it would be on the breakfast show. Now, normally speaking, I'd want to get there at 5 a.m. So my car used to come at 4:15 because I live in Stockbroker Belt, Surrey. All of a sudden, the car comes at 4:45. And I'm thinking, hang on, what's happened? What's happened is they introduced the 20-mile-an-hour zone once you got into Greater London. Now, I can appreciate that speed limits have to reflect safety levels in urban areas. But at 4:30 in the morning, there is literally nobody on pavements. There is hardly anybody on the road. And yet my driver, frustrated as he was, had to drive at 20 miles an hour for the last 4.5 miles of our journey. Now, not only is that ridiculous because there was empty roads in front of us with no pedestrians, but also the man's business has now tumbled because he only gets paid by the job. He doesn't get paid by the time that he spends in the car. He gets paid by the number of people he picks up and takes around London. It's an absolutely ludicrous invention. I don't mind looking after urban safety, but please tell me, somebody, at 4:30 a.m. in the morning, why are you driving at 20 miles an hour on empty roads? I know why it is. It's because you can fine people for going faster than 20 miles an hour. And a friend of mine at about 5 a.m. in the morning in London was coming down Lower Thames Street on the banks of the River Thames, and he got done twice in 2 days for doing 21 miles an hour and 22 miles an hour.
Okay.
It's a racket. It's a money-raising racket.
Alex de Koning, this 20-mile-an-hour zone is just the nanny state in overdrive and a war on motorists. And as Mike Parry says, simply a money-raising exercise.
Hi, thanks for having me on the show. My name's Alex. I'm a 24-year-old climate scientist. And in urban areas, we don't need cars. Let's be honest. We can have subsidized public transport. Why wouldn't we want cheaper public transport? For people who need cars, that's a whole other story. Don't get me wrong. But for example, Germany, they subsidized public transport for 3 months. And in doing so, they saved enough carbon to drive between Glasgow and London 22.5 million times. Sadly, we're in a climate emergency and we need to be treating it as such. Why shouldn't we be having more buses and more trams and more trains and made cheaper? We're in a cost of living crisis.
What if we choose to drive? What if people feel safer in a car? What if they've got kids that they need to take to school? What if they are a tradesperson that's got equipment and tools?
Well, for specific scenarios, it's different. Let's be honest. If you need a car, then that's a whole other story. But a lot of people in cities don't need a car. You can walk most places. You can take the bus, the train, and let's be honest.
What if it's raining? What if there's a train strike? What if there's muggers on every street, which these days there are?
Yeah.
We're talking about London, right? Then Mike Parry was talking about London. There's plenty of metros in London which take you underground, believe it or not.
Alex,
and so it's absolutely fine.
That's a nonsense.
A lot of people back in 20, 30 years ago thought the same thing about the tobacco industry, right? They thought people need to smoke. That's the entire way. Even though it's killing people, that's just the way it is. But now we've cut that out. People can still smoke if they want to, but it's far less common. Why don't we have that with cars? Why don't we say, no, we need no new oil, as Just Stop Oil is demanding, and we get subsidized public transport instead? We get integrated homes, cheaper renewable energy, which is 9 times cheaper.
Mike Parry?
Alex, I know you're trying to save the world, and I respect you for having an interest in our environment and in the way the world works. But quite frankly, you are very misguided. When I'm driving in a car at 4:30 in the morning, and I'm not driving, it's a driver who's got me, that car going at 20 miles an hour, and you've got the facts at your fingertips, sends out more pollution into the atmosphere doing 20 miles an hour than the car would do at 30 or 40 miles an hour. Because when an engine croaks, and it literally croaks at 20 miles an hour, it is throwing out more pollution. When you want to try and restrain motor cars, buses, anything like that, by narrowing the roads, all you're doing is putting up pollution. And the 20 mile an hour imposition on motorists is actually, Alex, if you don't mind me saying, just your war on anybody who's worked hard enough to be able to afford a decent car. My car is a 3.5 litre Mercedes. It's got the best and finest engine in the world. It does not pollute the atmosphere. It is not designed to drive at 20 miles an hour. It's just you against me because you haven't got a car and I have.
Alex de Koning, final thoughts on this. Many of my viewers need cars to get around, and others simply enjoy driving a car. They pay their taxes, they pay a lot of road tax as well, and they consider it their human right to purchase a car and actually use it, and to drive it at a sensible speed. What would you say to them?
First of all, who is against cheaper public transport? We're in a cost of living crisis. And secondly, sadly, we're in a climate crisis too. Unfortunately, you're both out of touch. Last year, it was 40 degrees in the summer. 1,700 people died over the course of that week. Apples cooked on the trees. Birds fell out of the sky.
It was a hot summer. The weather was good.
It's going to get worse every single year, and we need to address it properly. We need cheaper public transport.
With 4:30 a.m. in London driving a car.
Okay, well, look, I tell you what, it's all about opinions. Mike, we'll send you an Uber just to calm you down a little bit. My thanks to both of my contributors to that debate.